Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Summer Hikaru Died, Season 1, Episode 8. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode. So let's break it down. So we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode where Yoshiki is now cleaning up the quote-unquote crime scene, or would-be crime scene, but it's still a crime scene, whatever the case may be. Got to get the blood out of Hikaru's shirt and clean stuff up before his mom gets home. But it's like, oh, are you feeling okay? And Hikaru's like, no, I'm fine. I healed up that wound pretty easily. And he's like, yeah, like, normally he's like, because he doesn't feel any pain, he normally doesn't, like, any small cuts and stuff like that, he typically will leave them alone just because of that. So I just thought that was so fascinating, because part of me was like, is it because he wants to just appear human so he doesn't normally heal them, or is it just because it's almost like the thing of like that medical condition where like you literally can't feel pain, that because of that, like, you never notice you get small cuts. So maybe for him it's like, oh, I never even notice it, so that's why I never heal it, because I don't think about it, because I don't feel it, so why would I? And I think that's interesting to think about, considering he got the wound before he broke off a part of himself and gave it to Yoshiki. Because we see later on, like, when things go down at the school, which we'll talk about later, he gets bumped into the desk and he's like, ow, that hurts. He's like, wait. He was almost like, wait, what? So I'm like, interesting. Because he gave a part of himself to Yoshiki, he's not what he was. So now I think he's becoming a little closer to human, to the point that, yes, he still is what he is, but to a lesser degree. And now I think a lot of the human elements of the body, like its limitations and what's kind of like, the fact is that he can now feel pain, because it's more like, it's like his entity, the entity itself kind of consumed every fiber of what was Hikaru's body, and now like at least maybe half of it at least is gone. And so like the body's kind of, I guess, almost regulated to kind of almost be like practically a human body now. Like, I mean, it'd be interesting if we find out he actually makes up less of a percentage of Hikaru's body now, and it is more human than whatever the entity is. Because they also looked into the note, you know, that was on Hikaru's body, because once again, they're going to investigate and find out what the thing in Hikaru is. And it says like Hichi, and obviously the thing inside of Hikaru is like, I don't really remember much. Everything is kind of like a blur. And so they end up asking Hikaru's grandfather, who mentions Hichi, and he's like, oh, is it gone? Where did he go? Like, he's like, did he go to the mountains? Because he's definitely not in our little shrine or whatever. And I'm like, that's not Tanaka's hunting dog, is it? That's not Hichi, is it? I don't know. But then his grandfather kind of goes on this diatribe about just like, oh, he brings up, once again, there's a Nuki and then there's no Nuki. Like, they are distinctly two different things. So I'm like, what is the differentiator there? Like, could they seem like they're supposed to be the same thing? Like, that's why I'm like, are they supposed to be two sides of the same coin, kind of like a yin and yang of it all, where it's like maybe one was the good thing and the other's the bad thing, and they both make up two sides of the same entity? Like, maybe in the past it was known, like, they talk about in the past, but they still use it as the name Nonuki. Said, like, that's what I'm so confused about. Like, is that just a mistranslation thing? Like, what's with Nonuki and then Anuki? Like, what are the differences there? They talk, like I said, they talk about it like they're two separate entities, but it seems like they're also talking about the same entity. So, but he goes on about like the village being like a murder village, a village that's cursed, and then he falls asleep. So, no closer to any answers on that front. But then they go to school and it's like, you know, Yoshiki's looking up stuff about, was it Kabitachi, the village, trying to learn more about it. And like one part of the characters used for it is, I think it said neck. And so it's like, I was like, what's that about? And then he sees a guy outside and he's thinking like, oh my God, it's a spirit. It's a spirit. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. And then other people start reacting. I'm like, that doesn't seem like it's a spirit. And it's not. It's a guy that's just outside and butt naked. And then like he cuts himself, slits his own throat. I was like, Jesus, that's, and they're kind of talking about like, yeah, things have kind of started getting wilder and weirder in like the town and village and stuff, because it does seem like once again, whatever the thing inside Hikaru is, it brought a whole bunch of stuff down. Like, there's so many spirits running around, and I think they're starting to affect people. Because even Asako's like, yeah, that guy was possessed. Like, something inside of him, she saw it. So I think more and more of those things are coming down, and they're having an effect on the town and the village. And I think that kind of goes back to that ending we had, where like you got those flashes of different parts of the village like sprayed with blood. Because I think it's supposed to mean like, because Yoshiki's doubled down on this direction they're going, it's like you're opening up the village to everything that's going to, the fallout of this is going to be crazy, because there's going to be so much that's kind of follow that thing off the mountain, and Yoshiki's also drawing them closer too. But I mean, obviously the thing in Hikaru seems to be the bigger beacon, but I'm curious if that's the case anymore, considering he gave a portion of himself to Yoshiki. But then it's like, does that put Yoshiki more on the map? Because he's, and as I figured last episode, I was like, well, there's no way he's just going to leave that out and about at home. And he's keeping it with him all the time in his pocket. So, but speaking of Asako, like she ran into Yoshiki because obviously they skipped the choir and everything last episode. So she's like, "Oh, are you feeling better?" He's like, "No, I'm good. It's about you." She's like, "Yeah, I just can't hear on my right ear." And Yoshiki realizes like, "Oh, that's because of Hikaru," and he's kind of apologized. She's like, "No, you don't apologize. It's nothing about it." Because she's like, "I went to the doctor and they can't figure out what's wrong." And so Yoshiki asks Hikaru about it. He's like, "Yeah, like it must be a byproduct of when I poke her, because humans are so fragile." When he poked her, he's like, "Luckily she has a strong mind, so she should be fine." It's like, he's like, "Oh, she's lucky. The only thing that happened was her ear." And I was curious. I was wondering if that would have any effect on her ability to perceive spirits and stuff, because obviously she can see them too, but like her main thing initially it was hearing. But I'm also curious, like, if she did lose her hearing, would it amplify her spiritual awareness in other capacities? So like maybe losing one ear sharpened her other senses, type of thing, like your body overcompensating, having lost a sense or something. And once again, she still has her left ear, but it's like, that's kind of crazy. And once again, Hikaru not thinking much of it. He's like, "Well, I mean, it's lucky it's all it was her ear." And just like, Yoshiki's almost like, "Dude, that's not the point. Like, you almost killed her. You were willing to kill her, and you don't even really fully realize how bad it is that you did what you did to her. Like, that's kind of messed up. I mean, she might be stuck like that for the rest of her life. Like, her ear will forever be damaged. But it is better than the alternative of being dead. But still." But Asako says, like, right, she's worried about everything going down, because she's like, so much is happening. Because she even says, like, yo, like, Maki got hurt on, like, the basketball team or something like that, because one of the other players got super violent out of nowhere. And it's just like, once again, things are, like, turning up with all this going on. And she feels like she can't do anything. And she worries about Hikaru. She's like, "Are you okay?" It's like, I know there's something inside. He's like, "Oh, like, I must be resistant to evil spirits or something." She's like, "Right? Huh." She's like, maybe. So, because Yoshiki had asked her earlier, like, if there was something inside of Hikaru, would you hate it? And she was kind of like, "No." I think that's kind of what she was saying. But he was like, "Yeah, I'm just messing with you. I'm just kidding." Because what he said to her back in episode 6 was to make her feel like she wasn't going crazy. Like, "I don't want you as my friend to think like I don't believe you and I think you're crazy." I wanted to alleviate that, but it's also like, nah, there's nothing inside of Hikaru, I think, but she knows what she sees and she feels from him. But it's also like, she even comments on like, yeah, Hikaru has been a little different. So obviously they want to learn more about all this stuff, so they go to the library to research some stuff. And they end up finding out an interesting history about Kabitachi, that apparently it used to be one large village, but all those other smaller villages nearby are split offs, because they all, like, I think there was like a plague that ran through, like, not plague, like something, it was like a famine, that's what it was. A famine happened in like the 1700s or whatever, and a whole bunch of people died. I think sometime after that is when the village split up into 5 different parts. But when you lay out the map for the place, it's like, it looks like a body. And it even says like the different names for the places are all body parts. So like I said, Kabitachi like uses like the character for like neck. So it's like interesting. It's like, that definitely seems on interesting, and I'd assume maybe that connects to the Nonuki of it all. And they ultimately end up talking to the librarian. It felt like, I was like, oh, it felt like they're making her important because they're focusing on her in the background, telling them to hush. And we find out why. She's Matsura's, old lady Matsura's daughter. And obviously Yoshiki's feeling like complicated, and it was more like a shock, but not really like, he doesn't necessarily feel bad about it. I'm talking about Hikaru, but Yoshiki obviously feels the most guilty because for her, it's like, my mom died and she's still kind of dealing with that. She even says later on, like, my mom always looked at me as like her cold-hearted daughter, but it's like, I never realized, it's that thing of like, you never realize how special and important someone is to you, sadly, until they're gone. And it's like, that's kind of been taken away from her. She also fills them in on about some of the village's history about Nonuki being a god, her mother seeing it at such a very young age, or something in the mountains at a young age that scared her, so it made her not want to go back up there. But the whole point was like, there were certain offerings given to Nonuki, and it was a god of blessings. But it's like, after the famine situation, the god became a cursed god. And so it's like, is that where like the Nonuki and Unuki of it all comes from? Like the difference between the god of blessings and the god of curses? Obviously, the person they're going to have to ask next is Old Man Takeda, because obviously he's from the same generation. Oh yeah, the librarian Matsura also talked about, it's like her mom wasn't really the same after her little sister went missing. It's like her sister went to the mountains, and it's like, yeah, people were like freaking out at the time, and obviously she's like, I knew nothing about Nonuki and all that, but she remembers Takeda and them looking a little worried. So I guess their families like seem to be like, I think those are the families that kind of passed on stuff, because I guess Matsura's family isn't part of like the elder families, because it seemed like obviously Hikaru's family and maybe by extension also Yoshiki's family seem to maybe have some involvement here. Like Yoshiki and Hikaru getting close at a young age might not have been like just, oh, it happened. It might not just been the most natural thing. It might have been a byproduct of, oh, our families are close, but maybe like since then they've like pulled further away. I'm not sure. And I'm only basing that on the that flashback where we saw all four of them together: Hikaru, his dad, Yoshiki, and his dad at that fire festival or whatever. And that's when Yoshiki's dad was telling him like, yo, don't ever go into the mountains or whatever. So that's the only real reason I'm pulling from that. But we definitely see like the three main elders, and like I said, I'd assume like, once again, Hikaru's family played some role, but I don't know if they counted as elders, and the same thing for the Matsuru. But for Takeda to have that reaction like in that flashback, makes me think like he must have known from a young age, so his father must have prepped him for what was to come, but Matsura was kept in the dark. Not unless we find out the reason why she also had such complicated feelings towards her daughter, because maybe like kind of Hikaru was kind of set up to be the heir to his family. Maybe Matsura's sister was, but it seemed like you would think it would go to her because I think she's the older sibling, but I could be mistaken. The Matsura that we met, I thought she was the older sibling. I think she was the older girl in the photo, not unless that was the sister, but whatever the case may be. As they were leaving, and obviously the conversation about her mom and how she felt made Yoshiki think about Hikaru, who used to say he hated mornings because it was like every morning he was waking up as a reminder that his father was gone. And so as they're walking, Hikaru's not thinking much of it. He's just kind of like, yeah, it must be a cursed god or whatever. Do you think I killed all those people back then? And then Yoshiki stopped and was like, do you realize what you did to Matsura? And he's like, well, yeah. He's like, no, I actually don't understand. And it's like, he's getting to the point he kind of is, but kind of isn't. And it's just like, obviously it's like the whole conversation about death hurting, but he can't quite comprehend and wrap his head around it. So Yoshiki tries to make him feel better by being like, for him, because he's like, I'm a fool, because he's like, I was so wrapped up in everything. It's like, yeah, I knew, I figured out last episode, or rather the episode 6, like, yeah, I confronted you about killing Matsura, old lady Matsura, but now it's like, I never really took the time to think about it. I'm so concerned about my family. At no point in time last episode did I ever think, oh my God, what about other people's families? What about Lady Matsuri? Like, I never really gave it much thought, but now it's like I am. And so for him, it's like, it's okay. No matter who you kill going forward, I will bear the sin of that. And it's like, you are taking a lot on yourself in so many capacities and ways. But he made it clear last episode, he'll take this as far as it goes, even if he manages to break in the process of it all. Because for him, it's more of a fact of, he's, even with all this going on, he spent so long looking away. Because even, that 6 months he stayed by Hikaru's side, never saying anything. He just continuously looked away, but it's like, I will stare into the abyss. You stare into the abyss will stare back. But I think that's kind of like the process of like how he's just going to handle this all going forward. So then we had Tanaka showed up at Takeda's place to give him something, and it's like, oh, it's so supposed to be a good luck charm. I think he even say like, give it to your father. And I'm like, I don't know if that had to deal with why Takeda was like, oh no, old man Takeda was like, oh, like, son, come here, like, because I know the news report was covering like the incident at the school, but beyond that, like, we don't know what that was about. Because last time we saw old man Takeda was like in episode 1 after Mitsura died, he was scared, being like, oh, I'm going to be the next one. And then as Tanaka's leaving, lo and behold, who he runs into, Yoshiki. It's like, finally crossing paths. And Hamster, I was wondering if the Hamster was going to have some reaction, and it kind of does. But I think also, I don't know if it was just purely the Hamster or whether it was Tanaka himself feeling something from Yoshiki and being like, yo, let me ask you a question. Is there a souvenir place around here? Like, what would be a souvenir to get from here? And think, was it like shiitake mushrooms is what I believe he said. And him not being the biggest fan of mushrooms, but he's like, I'll kind of, suck it up and eat it regardless and not be too picky. And just before he's about to leave, Yoshiki's staring at the hamster. It's looking all cute, staring back at him. And then we hard cut to this like very like joyful moment. And just like, ha ha ha, the hamster's in your hands. Oh my God, he's pooping in your hands. It's like, it's okay. I'm like, just a hard cut juxtaposition with like that, just like the bright and colorful background of that scene. I don't know why, like that just made me audibly laugh. Because it just kind of comes out of nowhere. But it's like, he says like, this is my partner who's 12 years old. And it's like, we've been partners for 12 years. But Yoshiki's like, no, like hamsters live like 2 years. He's like, yeah, but mine's kind of special. Which I'm like, is that true? Or is that complete and utter horseshit? Whatever the case may be, as he left, he ended up thinking about it. He's like, okay, so that kid Yoshiki is definitely run into somebody. Something like he's mixed, using the same terms as Kurebayashi, I believe. I'm struggling with the name. But he had noticed the mark and he was like, hey, you're the same as me. And I was like, because early in the season when Kurebayashi talked about her son that no longer lives here, my thought was, could it be Tanaka? Because he has like a mark on the side of his neck. And I was wondering if like his father did that to him just like Hikaru did that to Yoshiki. So that's why he was like, oh, you remind me of me. And I think he's talking about the mark on his neck and the mark on Yoshiki's hands. But either way, as he's leaving, he's like, yeah, that kid's definitely mixed. So he's like, yeah, could he have run into the thing? And he says like, this thing must be like formless and it doesn't have any emotions, which is interesting considering like it's tiptoeing its way towards getting emotions. But then he's like, I wonder, could it be disguised as a human walking about? And I mean, obviously animals can react to what's inside of Hikaru, but like I said, I don't know if because of the state he's currently in, whether or not that's going to be 100% applicable in this regard. Can they not sense the thing that's on Yoshiki in his pocket, like or the mark on his arm? There's something in the air about him that probably seems off, but I just don't know how much is. Is there something that's special about him that both the hamster and Tanaka can kind of feel, or is it just a happenstance that you happen to be there and being close enough to him? Because you're questioning him without really going into it, which I think is ironic considering later the next day, Yoshiki is talking to Hikaru about trying to like work out what questions they can ask old man Takeda without like letting him know what they're really after, but kind of dancing around stuff. Like I need to like come up with questions and kind of be able to slip into stuff we really want to ask about. Obviously, we also have Tanaka getting called by one of his colleagues, being like, "Yo, you have to do a pretty often check-in." He's like, "Well, nothing's come up yet," and obviously getting pretty annoyed by the fact that he has to do all that. But he also talks about whether or not his hunting dog will be able to find Hikaru, or the thing, and then we hard cut to the theater, and there it is. It's like, well, like I said, I didn't even piece it together that that thing was the hunting dog until someone, like I said, someone referenced that in episode 6. They were like, "Oh, could that be the hunting dog?" And I was like, "Wait," I was like I said, I never even correlated that that might be the case. But yeah, like they're at like a restaurant or whatever, and they're eating, or just figure. No, I don't think they were eating it. I think they were just like figuring all that stuff out, and then things got. Oh right, but I was about to go on my diatribe. Sorry. The conversation came up about like that bone is super important because it's like, yeah, without that I might perish. He's like, wait, what? Is something that important? He's like, well, yeah, like, dude, like I'm literally putting my fate in your hands. And he just thought like, oh, this is like a party, but he's like, I didn't know if like something happened to it, you'd be screwed. And he's like, well, it probably won't break that easily, but it still probably could be broken. I'm assuming it probably could get broken specifically by that sword that Tanaka has, where he's like, oh, it basically only cuts spirits. It probably could break that bone, and then Hikaru would be in a bad situation. But then all of a sudden, Yoshiki notices it, and you're like, the hunting dog found them. And then it like pops its head beneath Yoshiki because he had looked around. He's like, why is this place so quiet? And it kind of got drawn into like this spiritual domain, which seems to be kind of like in their repertoire. They'll all kind of do that given enough time. And like the head is there, Yoshiki's freaking out. Hikaru grabs his hand and it's like, just sit still. He's like, come on, come on, come on. And he's trying to eat the thing, but once again, he's in a much weaker state. As I brought that up last episode, it's like, yeah, you might, he even said it's going to be harder for me to kill anyone because of that, but it's like, means he's not strong enough to just kill some of these things. And so we see like his nose is bleeding and his left eye is full of blood and it's dripping down. He's like, sorry, I couldn't do it. So Yoshiki grabs his hand, tries to take off with him, but like eventually like Hikaru passes out. They make it to the door and they're kind of pinned down by this thing. But before it could do anything, it seems like Kurebayashi shows up and kind of, I guess, knocks it away. Like I said, I didn't think about this until someone else pointed it out. They suggested like she might be eating those things, but it could just be she is just clapping them away. Whatever the case may be, she saved the day, and she's there to help out Yoshiki and him. So it's going to be interesting to see what that next conversation is going to be like. Did she permanently snap that thing away, and kind of send it back to where it was originally, or is that thing just like, did she just banish it for now, but it's still out and about? We'll have to wait to see the next episode where that all takes us. I believe we're at the back fourth of this season as well. I believe this season's only 12 episodes. It might be 13, but I'm pretty sure it's only 12 episodes, so we got like 4 episodes left. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the back quarter of the season is going to take us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.